Welcome to the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss the exciting science behind HRV and how you can apply it to your own health and the work that you do. Just a note, this podcast does not replace medical advice, and if you're going to apply this to your own life or others, please consult with a medical provider. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of the Heart Rate Variability Podcast. My name is Jeff Summers, co-founder of Optimal HRV, joined again, as usual, with my partner, Matt Bennett.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Matt. And
Jeff, we have a guest today, Jeff.
I didn't even get a chance to say that, and we're super excited because we have our first guest to the podcast. We are very honored to have Becca Sheade on with us. Becca is a brilliant occupational therapist in Chicago, Illinois, and somebody that we've been partnered with for a couple months now, I guess, and really excited about the work that we're doing together. So, we wanted to kind of introduce Becca, her clinic, her work, and some of the really groundbreaking stuff she's doing with some of our clients, and how it relates to HRV, because I think there's a lot of people that are going to be interested in that approach. So before we jump in, Becca, maybe if you don't mind, it's one thing for me to give an intro. It's another thing for you to kind of tell everybody a little bit of background and what you're focused on at Elgin.
Awesome. Thank you. So first of all, those were a lot of really nice adjectives. I don't know that I deserve all of them.
You do.
Thank you.
You do. And if Matt would have been doing the intro, there probably would have been about 10 others. So I apologize. I didn't do you nearly enough justice that he would have.
Thank you. My name is Becca. I founded this company. I'm sitting in my office, which feels wonderful because during COVID, my attendance at the office has been very interrupted, which is heartbreaking. I love this place. I founded this company almost 10 years ago. In January, it'll be 10 years, which, I mean, that in itself could be a whole podcast. To keep a business, to tell the story of a business over 10 years is like, I get weepy just even thinking of it, truthfully.
Especially over the last 10 months compared to the 9 years prior.
That's like a anthology right there. It's So I'm in my office. I just left my husband and my 3 kids at home. They're all remote learning together. I was like, bye, love ya.
Have fun.
I actually just finished 2 months ago, I finished my 200-hour yoga certification to become a yoga teacher. I've been wanting to do that since I was in college, and I just pushed it off. And a year ago, I said to my husband, like, I'm going to do this. And he was all about it. He was so supportive. It was a long journey for both of us. It was awesome. And I'm an OT. I work with kids. Interestingly, I started my career wanting to work with adults with spinal cord injuries. And I got to that setting and I went, ooh, no, like I don't like this at all. And I really quickly pivoted to peds and found my calling. My insides are tie-dye and rainbow and sparkly. And so when I started working with kids, I was like, I'm here. And I just, again, I feel so lucky to be in this situation with this group of people. We're a multidisciplinary team. I'm not exaggerating. Every one of the therapists I work with is phenomenal. I can't believe 10 years later, that this is this company, because it didn't start this way. And I just have, I work with a great group of people. I have a great clinic. I'm excited about what I'm doing with you guys. This has been a really great shot of adrenaline because it's been kind of a slow year. So putting this all together has been exciting, and it's gotten me just back to being a clinician, which really hasn't been my primary role for a while now as a business owner and a mom of 3. So what I'm doing in terms of HRV and some of the interoceptive work that we'll get to, it's really got me on fire as a clinician again, which feels really awesome.
That's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Jeff, before you jump in, I would love, because, one of the things, and I was guilty of this too, what is occupational therapy? Because I think if you haven't been exposed to it, you hear the occupation part. So I know having worked with OTs, I love y'all. But for somebody who might be listening, who's like, do you help kids get jobs? Give a definition of the amazing work you all do.
Thank you. Okay, so OTs, it depends on the setting you go to. So I'll talk specifically about me, but if you go to a hospital or a skilled nursing facility or a school, you're always going to get essentially different answers, which means that this field in itself, you could just make your own path, and exactly kind of what I'm doing right now. So in my setting, in outpatient pediatrics or office-based pediatrics, we really work with kids on learning how to do the jobs of a child that age. So like when we're talking about, let's talk about my youngest son who's 3, his job is to go to preschool, to get dressed, to get himself on and off the toilet. Like his expectations are really low. I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, and we'll talk about the 8-year-old. Like his expectations are to put on his hockey equipment by himself, help clean up after a meal, help pick up dog stuff in the yard. Like his expectations are much higher, and parents bring their kids to OT or this place specifically because somewhere early in the line they were like, my kid's not doing what all those other kids are doing, and why? And then we try to figure out like what is missing, and 99.9% of the time it's regulation and co-regulation and regulation. And so then they come to me or another OT to work on how to get their nervous system regulated so they can do the jobs that kids their age are doing. And in some cases, they can, like I work with kids who have cerebral palsy, and it's always going to look different for them. And we have to have that expectation that they're going to do it and it's going to look different, and that's okay. Like they're doing it. And then there's other cases where, kids aren't doing their jobs as well as they could be, and we can fix that, or not fix that, but support that and really help that. So it means a lot of different things in a lot of different age brackets, and places.
Yeah, it's well, and to your point, Matt, I mean, for somebody like me who's not sort of been in your world in the past, occupational therapy was brand new, and to hear some of the stories, Becca, of the impact that you've had on your clients is pretty impressive, and some of the methodology that you've used certainly wouldn't have been anything that I would have expected. So, I think maybe if you don't mind sharing a little bit about how you've approached your work. Some of the kind of groundbreaking stuff that you've done and some of the results that you've seen. I think a lot of people like me would be really interested in the stories. They're really powerful.
Yeah. So I'll start by saying I have a coworker here. Her name is Karen, and she's a physical therapist from Texas. And she is brilliant at what she does. And she uses a technique called total motion release. And she's taught me this much of it, but she gets her hands on a kid and she just changes their nervous system and their muscle grouping. Like she's just wonderful. And she told me that like the golden ticket for her was this specific training in total motion release. And I watch it in therapy every day. I'm like, she's amazing. So, that's always been in the back of my head for the few years I've known her. And during quarantine, at the beginning of quarantine, I really started to like lose it, as everyone did for different reasons. But like,
so you're going back to April timeframe?
Yeah, early March.
April. Okay.
I started seeing like a horrible decline in my business in like January with that, but that was before we were, having the COVID conversations we had in March.
Yeah.
The world was going nuts, and my kids were home, my business was doing horrible, and like I am a marathon runner, but I couldn't run 26 miles to regulate because my kids needed me on Zoom. So I just like found Jill Miller. I found her products. We'll talk more about her. And I had like some of the balls that she uses in her teachings, and I just got on these balls and I started breathing, and I was like, you can do this, pull it together, we got this. And I like really talked myself into it until until I could do it. And then I decided like, wow, what just happened? Like there was something to that. So I got online and I started studying more of her work, and I watched all her videos. I didn't read the book, but that you have in your home.
Yeah, exactly. As we were getting acquainted and talking more about some of the techniques that you use, I realized that my wife has the role model book in her basement, and she's read it and uses it. So it was a concept I was familiar with, but not nearly as much until we started talking. So small world.
Yeah. It works if you want it to. And, you know, like I made it routine, I made it habit, I learned the insides and outs of it. I sent her a message on Instagram, and I just said, hey, I'm an OT. I'm doing this at home with myself and with my son and my 8-year-old son. We both need it. And it like was really healing for both of us. And I think this work belongs in the pediatric sector. And she was extremely open and like engaging and interested. And she's like, let's set up a meeting. And so since then we've been in frequent communication, and I can't say enough about this woman. She and her husband are co-founders of this company, Tune Up Fitness in California. And she's so engaging. She's so brilliant. She's so open and creative. And every time I, watch one of her videos or see a post of hers or, read an email that she wrote me, I love her. I've never even met her, and I just adore what she's doing. So we've been back and forth, and she basically said, like, you let me know how this works for pediatrics and I'm on board. And so I decided to set up a study, and I just kind of, emailed her and her husband along the way, because I was using their names, I was using their product names, I was sending it to physicians in the area, letting everyone know what I was doing, and if they had any referrals they wanted to make for this specific group of kids with nervous system dysregulation. So basically I put something together, and I just said, I'm going to study the effects of nervous system regulation using her products, her balls, and how they affect the nervous system of kids with ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, everything that kind of falls under that nervous system dysregulation umbrella. I have since started working with 2 different people who have traumatic brain injuries. No, sorry, 1 person who has traumatic brain injury as well. And just my work has really been in finding how I can teach the concept of interoception using Jill's props. And originally I thought that what we would do is just have subjective reports by the parents, because if parents are seeing, different types of regulation, which leads to different types of skills or different sleeping patterns or eating patterns or behavior patterns or communication patterns, I was asking for that feedback, and I just wasn't getting a ton of it, because honestly, parents are exhausted. Like we are. Yeah. My kids go to bed at 8:30, and I turn to my husband, like, bye, Dev. Like, we're tired.
Yeah. So it's good that you had the 3 kids to understand that that's, it's not
totally
lack of want or lack of care, or, it's just exhaustion, and you only have so much bandwidth.
Totally. Right? And there's their OT asking more, give me more. And they're like,
exactly.
We're
I
done.
would love to. I can't.
Yes. So I decided I needed a different way to measure, because these kids it was when we were still doing more in-person therapy, they were coming to therapy. Yep. I was seeing over the course of a session, I was like, seeing all these things that I was hoping to see, in many cases, not all, but in a lot of cases. And then I wasn't getting that subjective report I was looking for. So I have a friend from college, Nathan Ayers, and we are friends on Instagram, which is, I guess, how you find everyone now. And I saw that he was like, his posts were talking about regulation. I actually don't remember specifically what post I saw, but I saw something that was like, oh, he's talking about what I'm thinking about. And I reached out to him, and we had 1 or 2 conversations. And in one of the conversations, he said, hey, why don't you look up these guys in Colorado, Optimal HRV? They're doing what you're talking about. Because I was saying to him, I need objective data. like parent report isn't working. I need objective information showing what I'm doing is effective or not effective, because if not, like, there's no buy-in for the parents, there's no buy-in for the carryover, like, I think that you really need data nowadays, and moving forward, you need numbers to show people like what you're doing is effective. So that's when I reached out to you guys, and it's been, again, it's been super interrupted from COVID. But in the summer we were like chugging, and in the early fall we were chugging. Now we're kind of slowing down.
It's gonna, exactly. We understand. That's everybody.
We understand that.
That's right. We've all been in that cycle all year long, and as the news of these vaccines means, hopefully, come springtime, life will be more back to normal for an extended period of time.
And I think one of the things, Becca, that I was so like thrilled that when you reached out to us is, one is like my dream of kind of starting this was to find folks like you with your passion and your curiosity and dedication to the folks that you work with. Like, when Jeff and I when I was trying to convince him or try to even explain to him what heart rate variability was, it's like, I really think we can like change folks' lives with this. And like, occupational therapy for me, like I worked in a special education school that I helped run years ago now. But, we would have we had an OT room, and I loved OT so much. I call it, as a mental health guy, I was like, I'm an OT tech with these kids, because it was a lot of our kids were autistic, some were nonverbal, and they all had severe behavioral issues, and talk therapy was not going to fix the problem. And even with all this learning I've done since, talk therapy is still not going to solve the problem. And what I loved is we had this occupational therapy classroom with bouncy chairs and bouncy balls and like all these amazing weighted. I have most of these in my house right now. I don't have room for a bouncy chair, but being 6'7", it's a big chair.
Oh, wow.
And the OT would have to kick me out because I learned to self-regulate as well in there. But what I loved when you reached out is like, what we found was, while certain things worked for most kids, our kids were such a puzzle to say, what is this intervention having on this kid? And that's where one of the things that, was really exciting for me bringing HRV, whether it's a mental health intervention or an OT intervention, we can start to measure it, and not everything's going to have the same impact, for every kid, but we can start to measure the effects that this have. And I love, and this is why like COVID just ticks me off at this point, is you are getting some really amazing results, even pre-post session, with some huge jumps. And I wonder, just kind of like, now that we have a few months, even though they're COVID months in our pocket, just some of the insights that you sort of got from integrating HRV into some of the interventions you were doing.
Yeah.
And just to add on to that too, before I think people would love to know too, how you're sort of, tactically using it. How are you using it with your clients, and when you're taking readings, and to Matt's point, what kind of impact are you seeing as you see the readings change? I know a lot of people are kind of questioning, okay, how do I incorporate this into my day-to-day? So maybe you can kind of weave those two things in together, because I think they're pretty closely related.
Totally. Mm-hmm. So I, first side note, thank you, because you guys provided a bunch of readers to the staff here, and a few two have gone home with clients, and you guys were super generous. And provide, when I reached out, you guys were like immediately on board and excited, as you are now, and really generous. So thank you.
Hey.
The way that,
my pleasure.
Yeah, the way that we're using it, or I'm using it, everyone here, all the staff has them. No one's using it regularly, because honestly, no one's working regularly right now, and learning something really new. And I'm one of the youngest, so it's a little intimidating for people I'm 40, And, you know, people who are 40 and up, I think, are more and more intimidated by new technology. And it's super easy. We went over it as a group, how to use it. Not everyone is implementing it yet. I think in the spring/summer, once we get going, we'll be able to have like more of a system as a team. But for myself, the way that I'm using it is kids are walking in the door, and we do our normal greet, and then they just come right into the room, and I pop a reader on them. I'm trying the finger one and the ear one, kind of seeing, you know, what's working best for who. I take a reading at the beginning of the session, and then we do our therapy, and then I take a reading at the end of the session, and I have my own little spreadsheet where I'm just, you know, keeping track of their pre and post intervention. And then, like we talked about, trying to focus more on the long-term picture and not so much on the individual sessions. But I am finding in time that these numbers are getting more and more predictable. Like, I know, you know, who's going to walk in the door at 40, you know, pre-intervention, and leave at 60. And I know who's going to walk in the door at 18 and leave at, you know, 30 or whatever it's going to be. So I'm finding that number one, the breathing, interoceptive work that I'm doing with Jill's products are working. Number one.
It's huge. Right? It's not subjective. These are objective numbers
not
that you can
anymore.
You know,
There's
share.
No family report.
Yeah, you know, and you can share it with parents, and everybody, I'm sure, is getting excited about that.
And I truthfully, like, it's awesome, because at the end of the session, if the parent's not in the room, because we're really tight about who's in the office now, at the end of the session, I just take a screenshot on my phone of, you know, what it was pre-intervention, what it was post-intervention, and I'll text it to the parent. I'll be like, here's our session, 40-point HRV improvement. And like, that says it all. And I mean, as I brought up to you guys, like, it could truly just be a measure used for billing, for, you know, insurance reimbursement, or to set goals, you know, like Becca will improve HRV score within 3 months by 5% by doing X, Y, and Z. I mean, it's really, you know, it's a conversation about, like, for OT, the conversation's always about function. What are they doing functionally? And PT and speech too, like, what are they doing functionally? But this is nice because it takes just a look at, like, how are they really doing? Like, what's really going on underneath the skill, underneath the, you know, function? Like, what do they look like in their nervous system? And for all of us here, we can't really do our job if they walk in the door and their HRV is 20 points lower than what it normally is pre-intervention. Like, we can't just jump in and, you know, like, make them eat the thing that's hard for them to eat, or do the lunge that's hard for them to do, you know, like, their nervous system isn't ready for that. And we just saw that when they walked in the door. So we know where to start our work. We know where to meet them and what to hope for. If I see a decline, I can maybe say, hey, how about we try twice a week for the next few months and see where we can get. It's such an easy communication piece is what I'm finding, having numbers.
It's so great. Look at the grin on Matt's face.
Yeah,
this is like ear to ear, man.
Because it is. I mean, like, I approached it from the mental health perspective, but also, again, working with the students that I did in the school. It's like, we all knew they were dysregulated. That's why they came to our school. You know, and you know, OT gave me the language. You know, and what I find fascinating, and this kind of goes in my other area of work that I do on, you know, the impact of trauma on folks, because so many of the folks that, you know, we also worked with at that school, you know, had the autistic diagnosis, but also came from histories of trauma as well. It's just all this dysregulation and how, whatever the intervention is. And that's why I love you that your team approaches it from different modalities, is how do we help that nervous system that's, you know, not operating functionally for whatever reason, start to heal and grow and build resiliency, and to get a concrete number that's just backed by a ton of research. It's like, oh, you know, it just gives us like a piece of information that, you know, may change what we do, may not, but just reinforces all these great things. And it's just so exciting to be alive right now.
Well, what I want to touch on, that piece that you just brought up of trauma, what's interesting and what we've been talking a lot about as a team, or we're talking about a lot as a team, is like the role trauma plays. So, adults, nervous system dysregulation is like anxiety, right? And we're all living with it right now. It's part of living with COVID. We are, like
associated with 2020.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Everything this year.
We're all going to need therapy after this. Like this is
did before,
ongoing
we're now. That's right.
trauma, totally. Yeah. But with kids, if you're, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Stop it. New client.
Yeah, exactly. You answered if you need to. Maybe it's a session that you want to take.
I got it muted. I'm not at my desk, so I didn't know how to do that.
No problem.
The role of pediatrics in trauma, because like the kids that we're working with here, they're babies. Still know how to silence. They're babies, and so it's interesting the way that questions have changed for me when I'm doing intakes over the last 10 months. Like, I didn't ask, did your baby have acid reflux 10 months ago? And because 10 months ago, I wasn't really thinking about trauma. And so think about, like babies, without going too OT here, I'm just going to bring up, babies when they're born, the first thing they do, they suck, and that's on their mom or the bottle or whatever it is. And that is their mechanism for self-soothing. That is the co-regulation between the mother or father and the baby. And, as soon as a baby starts latching, they learn to regulate. And if there's any trauma in the airway or in, the gut or wherever that is, and the baby develops acid reflux, and every time they go to self-regulate, it's trauma. And so like day 2, they're learning, like the world's not a safe place. Or, that's an extreme example, but day 2, or day 1, whatever it is, it's just the way that I've approached work with kids has really changed in kind of going down this path to think about the role of trauma and how, whether it was something they were born with, if it's genetic or if it's, physiological that presents really early. It's been a different approach. And like, all this, it stemmed from Jill Miller and her company, but then I started reading more and more about the Polyvagal Theory and started following more people in that circle, which, and it all led to this conversation, but it's all for pediatrics. It's all part of the same picture of how if we're not safe and social, we can't do our jobs.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing, and you mentioned the physiological part of it, and that don't get me started on the ventral vagal nerve, but if you've got that dysregulation and that the young children are just this mesh ball of neurons that are waiting to figure out how to organize themselves, and those early experiences can, if help isn't given, can just linger on throughout life, and, working with traumatic brain injuries and other things as well. I mean, you just see, especially if they linger and help's not given, there's always hope for everybody, but boy, to get it diagnosed and get it treated early on, you don't have to carry the pain and suffering on for the rest of your life. And those struggles become more ingrained the longer they're with you. And that's the amazing thing I think about where we're at is, really understanding that, hey, this kid's behavior is not a chosen behavior, that there's something deeper going on here. And measuring the success of what you're doing is just really cool to see that from all aspects as different fields wake up to this science. I think it's exciting where we're going with it.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question and just curiosity. So how did you approach introducing HRV to your clients and their parents? Most of them, I don't know, you tell us, but my guess would be all except for maybe one probably had no idea what HRV was. So just curious to know, how you approached that, what their initial reaction was, and how that's sort of changed over time the more you use it as part of your sessions?
Yeah. This is an area where I think I could probably do better in trying to learn more and more. When I approached the families that I was working with, I basically, said, hey, we're going to move from these subjective reports to me taking these measurements when your child enters and exits. And everyone was like, okay. I explained what I knew and understood of heart rate variability. No one had any concerns. No one's really tried to, I think this is kind of probably the next step for me, honestly, is trying to do more and more research on my own. I know it exists, so all I have to do is become more familiar with it. I think that for parents, it's nice because it takes the pressure off of them to share any information. And, instead it's me sharing information with them, which they appreciate. I feel like everyone's met it with, great, let's see, let's learn about it. Let's do it. No reservations at all. I've introduced the idea to several people about doing it at home. And, I think people are a little bit nervous because, again, it's just this piece of technology that's new and a little bit unusual, and people don't totally understand what nervous system is to begin with. I think that it's a little intimidating at first, but I think that it's super user friendly and everyone who has a phone could do it. So I don't think there's a reason to be hesitant in any way.
No, that's great feedback, because that's always when you put something new into practice, as a practitioner like yourself, that's always, I would think, a question mark. How's this going to be adopted? Are people going to be nervous? Are they going to be skeptical? Are they going to embrace it? I'm guessing that a number of folks that are listening to this might have had, those questions in their head. So it's nice to hear your experience in terms of everybody's been open, everybody's been happy. And to your point, now you're providing even more of a service and saying, hey, here's the objective effect of the session that you're paying for, and it's working, and here's data to prove it. So that's
totally.
That's
and it's my documentation too, which makes it really nice for me on my end. I'm used to writing these paragraphs and stories about what's going on, and then I'm writing pre-intervention 52, post-intervention 64. And I do include other information, but there's the efficacy of what I'm doing. It's awesome. It's really awesome.
If we could make the administrative side easier, I hadn't even thought about, obviously I've thought a lot about this being an outcome, short, medium, and long term, but boy, if we could make paperwork easier for folks.
Yeah.
Whew, that's
all right.
Good.
That's totally my experience. It's awesome. Yeah.
There you go, Jeff. Put that somewhere.
I was going to say, sounds like we have an offline conversation to have, so we can start developing some new components to the app itself, especially the web dashboard.
I hope it becomes the way of insurance, and it's streamlined. It's easy. It's so much easier.
No, that's cool.
We have to send notes every 3 to 6 months to the insurance companies. They have to approve what we're doing to get paid. It's this whole circus, and why not just shoot out some numbers and say here, what I'm doing is working. Here's your data.
Here's the science. Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
That's it. So, once I'm knocking on wood when I say this, once the world hopefully goes a little bit more back to normal, and you guys are consistently open and there's no concerns of COVID, or certainly much more reduced than they have been this year, where do you see yourself sort of taking this, your practice and everything that you're doing, and sort of the HRV component along with it?
So ultimately, I think my goal in what I'm doing right now is definitely helping, the little kids whose parents trust me to help those kids, helping my own kids at my own home. And then I think bringing a study out into the world showing that if you want to work on nervous system regulation, for children, because I'm only talking about pediatrics myself, I think that using a soft myofascial release tool to improve respiratory function is the way to do it. And HRV data shows the efficacy of it, really. I mean, I think that, I would like to see Tune Up Fitness create a pediatric line. I'd like to see other pediatric therapists, multidisciplinary approach to using this work to, like speech therapists using HRV to show like, hey, maybe today is not the day we work on this skill. Maybe we back up and work on this other skill based on, how your child is walking in the door right now. Using this as education for therapists for how we can approach our goals and new tools that we can use to help our clients, really. So I'd like to see it used more widely here and in the fields, in our own fields.
Awesome.
No, that's great. I mean, that's very cool. I just want to thank you for the partnership. It's been a ton of fun, working together over the past few months. As we've mentioned, we've had a little bit of fits and starts with the way the world is right now, but obviously I think we're going to have a lot of success over the next 6 months. I guess, Matt, anything else that?
Becca, I wonder, I'm sure some people will listen to this and be, how do I learn more about what you're doing? So if people put some information in the show notes, but for those that might be listening in the car, how could people learn more about what you and your great team are doing?
I don't know. Follow us on social media, I guess. We're not really publicly available. Like on social media, we're just posting pictures of crafts and cookie recipes.
Hey, I like photos.
I love cookies.
It's a joy to me each day to see your posts. So don't underestimate the power. I feel like I know your team a lot better after following you in social media.
That's kind of our goal. We had no social media, and then a therapist who works here, her daughter went to school to do just this, and so we were her first job, and I was like, you go, you do it. She makes it colorful and fun and beautiful. I guess if anyone wanted to learn more about what I was doing, they were welcome to email me. I can give you my email address for the show notes. I am super interested in learning more about all these topics from other people who know a lot more than me. So I love learning. So if you have more to add to this conversation, I'd like to hear it. Because I'm just kind of coming up with ideas and running with them, but
awesome. We're honored that you're running with us. So
we are, and we'd like to extend an invitation to be back on the podcast in 4 to 6 months after the clinic's back open, and you got a little bit more data, and we can kind of keep people up to date with your journey, because I think it's really important, and I think a lot of people are going to be really excited to hear about all the cool things you're doing.
Awesome. Yeah, I do hope that other therapists or people in similar health professions, that are listening, have the same ideas and the same curiosity, and we get to hear more from them too, because I think it's exciting. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's the fun thing about being in front on innovation, is that we know a lot of people will be here 5 years from now, but it's kind of fun, and I've learned to enjoy, hey, when you're out here with folks like Becca, dreaming on how to make this happen. It's a real joy to have worked with you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, stay healthy, stay safe. Becca, have a wonderful holiday season with the family and everybody at the clinic.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. As always, you can find information show notes at optimalhrv.com. So we'll see you all next week. Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you're interested in more information about HRV, please visit us at optimalhrv.com. Also, if you visit optimalhrv.com, you'll be able to sign up for our email list and download our free ebook, Healing with HRV. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next episode.